I think I have a story that is similar to many women who were born in the 50s. I was the first woman in my family to go to college, much to the distress of my parents, who had a different idea of what my future would look like. But something happened in the mid-60s that made a huge difference. The images I was seeing on TV were bothering me, and I was transforming. I was seeing images of Vietnam. I was seeing protests in the streets against the war, against just about everything, quite frankly, and then riots. I, of course, lived here in Los Angeles during the Watts riots. And then you add to that the socially relevant music of the era. I was obsessed with Dylan and Baez and Seeger, and I was changing. The world was changing. But then certain things happened in my life that gave me a voice. The first one was I attended a small private school here, and there was a U.S. history class. And in that class, I thought I was doing well. I was getting A's on everything. My parents got my mid-semester report card, and I had a D in history. My dad went up to meet with the teacher, and the teacher said that I was a difficult student, that I had far too much to say, that he found it to be argumentative, and he always felt I was debating him. And when he told me to be quiet, I would glare at him. I said to my parents, I'm not going back to that school. I'm not going back. Weeks, and then my parents looked into the local public schools, and they decided, well, let's give it a try. And they let me transfer to a public school, and I found my place there. I found my voice. I had teachers that wanted to hear my opinion, and I knew I had made the right decision. Then in 1968, Merrill West opened, and I was part of the freshman class coming in. And it was an exciting time because the teachers there were young and energetic. Many of the things that we were struggling with in society, they were too, and conversations led to that. And it was a very special environment. And there was one issue that kept coming up, and that was the fact that girls had a dress code. Boys did not have a dress code. And so in that conversation, a group of us were encouraged by teachers to address that. So we first went to our administration, which at Merrill West at that time was incredibly weak. And they said, oh, that's not us, that's the district. So we went to the district. We went before the board, and we told them that, you know, this was very upsetting to us. Why is it that girls have to wear skirts and dresses? And when they came up the stairs at Merrill West, they had to, if the dean thought it was too short, they had to go to their knees. And that had to touch the ground. And boys could do whatever they want. Well, about 2 weeks later, we got the memo that girls could now wear nice pants, no jeans. And so it was a small victory, but that was one of the first times that I really felt that I had been a huge part of change. Then I turned 16, and I got my driver's license, and I was so excited, and my mom and dad let me have one of their cars. And the first thing I did was come up here to the Peninsula Center. I applied for a job at J.J. Newberry's, and I got the job, and I came home to tell my parents, and I was just so excited, but I was greeted with a much different opinion. My parents were livid. They were angry. And I vividly remember the messages that they gave me. You know, girls do not work, period. And my mom said, you are taking a job away from somebody who needs it. And she said, what will our friends think if they find out our daughter is working? And then my dad, the best thing ever, he said, I will pay you not to work.
Wow.
And needless to say, I was beginning to learn how to win battles with my mom and dad. I wore them down, they let me work, and I worked on weekends and Thursdays and Fridays. Then the next big hit came, and there was a guy that was hired at the same time, and in the course of the conversation I learned that he was making $1.75 an hour. I was making $1.65 an hour. I was none too happy about that, and so my nature was to go and address it with the manager, but I thought, I don't want to get fired, because that'll just go right into my mom and dad's, belief that I really wasn't supposed to be working. So I sat on it for about 6 months. I finally went to the boss and I said, I had developed a relationship. I think I had proven that I was a good worker. And I asked him, and he never answered the question, but he gave me a 10-cent raise. And I, thought that was a victory. A few years later, I learned that I was making $2 an hour. That same person was making $2.30 an hour. And that was my introduction to that males are more valued than females. So then the next thing that really impacted my life is my boyfriend was a senior, and when I was a sophomore, and he graduated and he went on to college. And I was very thankful he stayed locally. He went to Long Beach State. But on weekends when we would go to do things, we would go to the college campus. We were going to things there rather than things with high school. So I started feeling a little bit of a distance. I felt different. I felt more mature. I felt I was ready for college. My parents would have been shocked if they knew the activities I was going to. It was sit-ins, to protest Native American treatment. It was marching against the Vietnam War. It was incredible speakers at rallies like Abby Hoffman and Jane Fonda.
Wow.
And I, again, was changing and finding my voice. And I, in my heart, knew here I was a junior, and I just couldn't go through more high school. I have to get to college, And so I started thinking, how am I going to do this? And I realized Long Beach State, that's not going to work. I'm just like one person and there's thousands in that system. I don't have a high school diploma. I haven't done any of the testing needed to get in. So I thought, I have an older brother, 6 years older than me. He went to Pepperdine. And he was like a star student, man of the year, won every award, great model student. And I thought, I wonder if I contacted them and identified myself as the little sister, maybe they would want me. So I wrote a handwritten letter at that time to Dr. White, the president, and I said, won't you consider taking me? I'm a good student, I'm a hard worker, I'm ready for college. I have goals in life, and those goals were simply to change the world. And so I didn't hear. But I failed to tell my mom and dad that I had done this. Okay. So one day they get a call from Dr. Hudson, who's the dean of arts and colleges at Pepperdine, and he wanted to talk about my plans. And he wanted to know if my parents approved, and because it was unusual that the letter came from me. Yes. And so my mom and dad handled it pretty well, but they came to me like, what is going on? He followed up with a letter with all of the possibilities of what I could do. So my parents at that point said, if you can figure this out, go do it, whatever. And so I went to my high school counselor, a woman, and I said to her, I thought she'd be so excited, guess what? I'm in college. I just need to right now immediately enroll in 2 senior level classes, Econ and Government. I need you to approve a UC of Berkeley extension, and I need you to waive 1 year of the 4-year PE requirement. 4 years of PE, so that was my biggest issue. And she started laughing and she goes, that's ridiculous. It's not as if you are, and I'll use the initials RL, not the gentleman's name, but she basically said it wasn't as if I was the smartest male at Merrill Est. RL was the genius. And I looked at her and I was so devastated, and then she asked the question, are you pregnant?
Oh my God.
Because the only reason she could think that I would possibly want to graduate early is because I was pregnant. I left. She subsequently called in about 10 of my girlfriends and asked them, is she pregnant? Because she was certain that was it. I went back to those fabulous teachers at Merrill Est who'd been my friends, and they said, go to Dr. Woods, go to the superintendent. So I did, and I met with him, and I presented my plan, and he accepted it. And so there He allowed me to enroll in the government and econ class, and I made up all the work. And then he allowed me to take the UC Berkeley English course for my full year of English 4, and I completed that the first part of August. And then he did waive that 4th year of PE, of which I was very thankful for, because that actually was the most difficult part of it. I needed him to waive that, and he did. So about 2 weeks before I started Pepperdine, at the end of August, I received in the mail my diploma. And that meant the world to me, because I was going on to college, but I also had my high school diploma. It said 71 instead of 72, but that was okay. That is how I got to college. And so with that said, I have to look at my mom and dad. And I have to think about what they went through trying to raise me. And I have to applaud them, because although they tried to stick to what they thought in their mind was right, there were several times where they could have done something simple. For example, they could have said, no, you can't leave this private school. They could have said, we're taking your car away, you're not working. Or they could have said, we're not going to pay for your college. And they could have changed my life. So I will be forever grateful to my parents. And I did go on to have a career, but I also tried to respect my family and maintain tradition. I've always tried to put family first. And I also have kept a tradition that we've had since the 20s. And it's an Italian tradition where the family gathers every Sunday for dinner. And I continue to do that. And even when I was in my most challenging work positions, I always honored that. As an educator working with students, I always have tried to help students find their voice. That's been very important to me. I've always said, ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you'll never get an answer. And during my time as a principal, when I would give my ending message to my students, it was very important that I give my last sentence one of encouragement, of something that I believe and have lived by. So no matter what my speech was for the kids that were moving on, I always ended with the same sentence. And it was always, speak up and let the world know you're there.